Hello, welcome to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome to deadline day here on WD18. There's no two better guests to have on to talk through all of Watford transfer business in this window, and obviously a bit of action going on today, more with players that are staying at the club, which is absolutely brilliant. Mr. Sam Ucko, Mr. Charlie Zazzera from the Coach's Voice, and Mr. Watford Spaces as well. Charlie, I'll throw it over to you first, mate. How have you found this window? First off, it's been a bit of a weird one, hasn't it? Because there's been a lot of stuff going on, but I think there's Watford fans out there who are still kind of thinking, can we get that right wing back? Where do you fall into the kind of Watford fan space at the minute? That wasn't a pun either.
It's been the longest window of all time, has it not? I mean, we started the season with Deeney, João, Sarr up front. It was kind of short of action at the beginning, wasn't it? We had kind of Bayat coming in, Manai coming in. Didn't look that exciting. And then, like, as the games were playing, and we were playing with Deeney, Sarr and Pedro, and then the Aston Villa and Newcastle reports for Sarr and Pedro, and Sam went early tweeting his goodbyes. And then
you know what? In fairness to me, right, when Fabrizio Romano puts those three words out, particularly for João Pedro, when it's a here we go, it's often a done deal. That's how I'm.
Mate, you know what? That might be a bigger comeback than the Wolves semi-final. Incredible. You're right though, Fabrizio. When he puts the here we go out, more often than not, he's got it right. And I think people are saying that's one of the few times he has actually got it wrong. But Sam, for all of the life, it did look like Pedro was going to be leaving this window. You'd put your farewell video together with a bit of Coldplay over the top. I think the club probably had the best moments already. Is it fair to say you're surprised he's still here? And the fact that he's put a statement out today saying that he's going to be staying and his focus is on the season. Yeah,
very much. And it's quite funny that I was having a look through our last videos on the channel, and the last video was João Pedro set to join Newcastle. And the video straight above that is João Pedro stays. I think it just sums up Watford. You know, if a transfer saga could sum up Watford Football Club, it would be that. It's just been all over the place. But look, I have to say I am surprised he's still here. Newcastle fans, you know, all over socials talking about, how is he going to fit in? Really excited to see how the player develops. And then all of a sudden, you know, we also see he has that injury. It was against Preston, wasn't it? He wasn't in the squad, and everyone thought, well, he's clearly off now, isn't it? Looks like that genuinely was an injury, maybe. But he's still a Watford player, and he's sticking around. That statement he put out on Instagram earlier was amazing. What all Watford fans want to see, and I'm delighted that he's still here.
So João's statement, if you haven't seen it already, he put an Instagram post out with the club, and he said, "I'm very happy here. I love being at Watford, and I want to do more with them. I spoke to the board yesterday, and I'm fully committed to the club and looking forward to a successful season. Let's go Hornets." Now, the key bit that I picked up on, Charlie, obviously the first thing was, thank God he's staying. Number two is that he wants to be here, which is great. Obviously, I'd imagine there was part of him which was looking at everything that comes with going to Newcastle at the minute and was tempted. But the biggest thing for me is to a successful season. Now, I've seen, whilst it's great that he stayed, a lot of people, I think Sam, you put a tweet out about clubs potentially going in for him again in January. Early to say, but how confident are you that we will get him for the full season? Or do you think it's a case of that there will be suitors coming back in January? Because ultimately, the way he's playing at the minute, I mean, it'd be a shock if there wasn't a club, right?
Yeah, I think. Sorry, Sam. I think January is quite a difficult market, but I think one thing that Watford have got to their advantage now is that I think we can ask for a bit more money than maybe the 25, 30, 35. If he smashes it, we're going to be in a better position if clubs do come. I think January is quite a difficult market, so for someone to part 35, 40 million for a 20-year-old could be difficult. It's just going to be after the World Cup, so obviously money talks, and who knows? It depends how good he is. But if he keeps up his form and doing what he's doing, what he done that first half of Middlesbrough was sensational, wasn't it? So I'm just so excited to watch him play for Watford until January. Hopefully he can spearhead a promotion charge.
Go on, Sam.
No, I'm just thinking, is it out of the question that he probably won't make it into the Brazil squad for the World Cup? Is there a chance that he can make it in there?
I think it'd be unlikely, personally, just because of the level he's playing at. And that's nothing against the Championship. But, I mean, you look at the squad they've got, it's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. I guess that is, I think, it won't surprise you one day if João's playing in the Brazil team, but I think they'll probably time it, won't they, with his development and stuff. But Charlie made a great point, Sab, about the game against Middlesbrough. Obviously, João was given man of the match. I actually put it out there. I don't know what you guys think. I think that was his best performance in a Watford shirt in terms of his all-round game. I thought, number one, the kind of the yards he was covering on and off the ball was phenomenal. Obviously, set the goal up for Sarr, linking up play, bringing others into the game. Just, I thought, his all-round game, I thought, was brilliant. I think the only thing he was missing was a goal. But Sam, where would you rank it in terms of the performances you've seen from Pedro in a Watford shirt?
I think you'd have to say it's the best, to be honest. What I really liked about it, just watching that highlights reel, the club put a tweet out yesterday.
How many times you watched that, Sam?
I did watch it at least 3 times, just thinking, oh my word, how did he do that? But I think what I was so impressed with was, I think it just summed up the João Pedro journey so far. I remember when he made his Watford debut in the Premier League, when he came on against Arsenal, that game he got relegated. He came on, I remember he took on 3 or 4 Arsenal players, and he was this really sort of skinny, bit lanky, young Brazilian player, and we were all really excited about him. And then the year after that, obviously, in the Championship, he put on something like 7-8 kilo that summer and scored a few goals, but I think there was still sort of key flaws in his game that were missing. He wasn't really getting the numbers that we needed. Last season in the Premier League, didn't really start too much. He was in and out of the team. But this season, he's grown into his body. He's someone who's taking responsibility, taking the game to teams, taking that free roaming position, dropping deep, wanting the ball, wanting to make things happen. And he just looks so exciting. He's a player who clearly is developing really well with Watford. And I reckon that's sort of in the back of his head, thinking, if I get one more season here, maybe I can get an even bigger move than Newcastle, without no disrespect to them. But I've said it wouldn't shock me if another club comes in January. Wouldn't shock me as well if, like we saw with Fabio Carvalho with Fulham last season when he went to Liverpool and went back out on loan to Fulham for the rest of the season, if something like that happens. But do you know what? He's a player that, whether it's at Watford or not, I can't wait to see how he gets on, because I think he's genuinely going to the top.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, look, the path is certainly going like that at the minute with João. Charlie, I wanted to kind of ask you about maybe Rob's take on this whole thing, because I think he's done really well. Obviously, we don't know the ins and outs, but from the outside, it looks like he's done really well in keeping the team around, particularly when there was the noise with Pedro, the noise of Sarr, which we'll come on to in a little bit. He's obviously had to deal with Deeney leaving, and the squad's really changed over this period. How much do you think Rob? What do you think Rob's thinking tonight, knowing that he's got Pedro till at least January in terms of the way he wants to play? Because I think from what we've seen so far, right, he's so crucial to what we want to do this season, and now I guess the way Rob wants to play.
Yeah, I think when he first saw João in training, he must have been shocked and stunned. I think, who is this lad? Like 20. I mean, what Sam was saying about Borough, for me, the most impressive thing is just his strength. He's 20 years old and he just flies past 30-year-olds, muscles them out. He doesn't dive. There's obviously Brazilian, South American players tend to dive, but he's so strong. And there was a sequence against Middlesbrough where picked up the ball, drove past Copper, did a couple of 1-2s, and he fed it through to Sarr. Sarr should have passed it through, and it'd have been a stunning goal.
He just had to get back to me. That would have been so good. I'm literally like a square.
He should have squared it, and that would have just been unbelievable. But I think Rob's come in and just seen how good this lad is. And what's really impressive for me about Rob, and same for Asprilla, I don't think age is an issue with him, like with experience. He's seen how good João is, and we know Rob likes his 3-5-2, and there's a perfect space, that number 10 role. And that's why João's been so good for me this season, because he just goes, go on then, you dictate, get right back. If you look at any of his heat maps, he's absolutely everywhere. So, and I think that's how you get the best out of him. He wants the ball. He's comfortable in any situation. He can square people up. He can pass it on. He starts attacks, and I'm so excited. So I think Rob's done brilliantly in terms of João Pedro, and in terms of dealing with the uncertainty in the squad. I think just look at our points we've got. We've played Sheffield United, West Brom, Burnley, Middlesbrough. 4 teams you think are going to be up there. Yeah, disappointing result against QPR, but I think our points tally has been really good. Hopefully that window is going to shut. Nothing else We haven't seen Sarr confirm that he's staying, but surely nothing else can happen. He knows what players he's got there, and we've got a really good squad. Let's be fair. It might not be perfect, but we've got a really good squad.
Yeah, agreed. I think we'll get on to kind of what maybe we're missing and what we do have in this Watford squad at the minute later on in the show. Just having a little look through the comments. Ian Crute says Rob's probably jumping in the high street right now with glee. He's probably with Sam after last season.
I've got a bit of Watford breaking transfer news here. 2 bits of breaking transfer news. Part of deadline.
Is this in the know or is this official sort of?
No, this is a official. Look, so the move that is official is Ignacio Pedro has moved on to Sampdoria. I think that's a loan with an option to buy. I'm not too sure though. And
the line against Tottenham.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, and the reporter from Stoke-on-Trent Live, Pete Smith, has said that Watford are trying to hijack Stoke's move for Dujon Sterling, who caught the eye at Blackpool last season. I'm not too sure.
I think he's already gone to Stoke, hasn't he?
This came out 10 minutes ago. This.
What tried to hijack Stoke's move for Dujon Sterling?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. I mean, look, do you know what's interesting with Dujon Sterling? He actually has the same agent as Ben Wilmot. So I imagine that got rebuffed pretty quickly. So I wanted to touch on what Charlie made a great point about Rob's use of the youth, because I think there's kind of a split, isn't there? Because on the one hand, you think it is so good that we're seeing youth, but then at the same time, is there an argument to suggest that maybe we shouldn't have to rely on Asprilla and these sort of younger players, or do you think it's a case of if they're good enough, they're young enough, if that makes sense? Or if they're young enough, they're good enough.
Yeah. Look, I think you have to be careful that you can't put too much responsibility on some of these players' shoulders. I think it's slightly different with João Pedro because of his level of performances. He's been in now for 3-4 years already. So I think it's slightly different with João because I think he's someone as well who it wouldn't shock me at some point in the season if we see him take the armband as well. Well, that's a big call from me at 20 years old. But, he's performing like a proper captain already. So I think with Pedro, it's slightly different. But Asprilla is someone who we saw him taking out the team against QPR. Obviously, he came on quite quickly with Raymond Nye's injury. But I think he's someone who Rob probably took out thinking that, this kid's a young guy. We're going to have to ease him in slowly. And it's probably a lot of responsibility for him at such a young age to be starting every game in the Championship for the 3 games a week that we're going to be playing. So we do need to be slightly careful. I think there's no problem in certainly looking to the younger players to provide that spark during games. But it doesn't shock me that, Rob is still opting to use some more experienced players in the squad.
Comunicado Oficial, Pedro to Sampdoria, confirmed by the club. What's your lasting memory of him, Charlie?
Yeah, like I said, my lasting, my only. that clearance against Tottenham. We should have won that game, shouldn't we? Deeney missed a penalty, didn't he?
Gazzaniga, I think was saved that.
Yeah, and again, if you look at how many points did we go down with, if Deeney scores that, could we stay up?
Good point.
Yeah, Fun fact was that's the last penalty Troy Deeney didn't go down the middle for.
That is a great stat.
Yeah,
that is a great stat.
He said after that he thought, because he tried to place it in like the far left corner, and after that he just thought, I'm just going to absolutely down the middle. So
I wish he could teach, or he taught Sarr that. But Pedro, not a lot to report really.
No, I think that's about it, isn't it? I mean, probably the closest goal line clearance we've got for history. Charlie, I wanted to throw over another man, obviously, who looks to be staying. Touch wood at this point. How many hours have we got left? Probably 4 or 5 hours left of the window. Ismaila Sarr. So obviously Pedro's deal to Newcastle fell through. Everton were rumoured to be interested. And then we also have the rumours and news around Ismaila Sarr, who now looks to be saying, according to Adam Leventhal at The Athletic, Crystal Palace, according to reports in France, were interested. Leeds as well, another team that had kind of sniffed around for Ismaila. But where does he fit in now? Assuming he does stay in the remaining hours of the transfer window, where does he fit into Rob's plans, do you think, this season? Because we've seen before, as you mentioned, that 3 at the back formation that Rob seems to favour, although he's kind of flipped between quite a few in the opening 7 games. He's a winger, played as a striker, he can play out wide. Where do you think he'll fit in?
Yeah, I think I said in the last video, make sure you check that video out, by the way, because you could see me and Sam almost in tears. So make sure you check that out afterwards. But I was kind of saying, look, I think Sarr, it could be the right time to go. He doesn't fit in Edwards' system. The deal hasn't happened, and I think I was kind of saying if he does go, we need to get an out-and-out poacher. And that was kind of my concern with Sarr. I think one thing that's changed my mind slightly is seeing Sarr play as a front two against Middlesbrough. I thought he did really well there. I think one thing about Sarr, which I think better than could be better than João Pedro at, is his end product, his finishing. I think you see that finish against Middlesbrough, touch, turn, bang. It was brilliant. He's done it before against Villa, Liverpool. In the Championship, he's really good at finishing. So I really was impressed by how him and João linked up as that too. I think it'd be interesting when Davis comes in. When can we have João kind of drop in, and how is that going to work? Of Davis being the man holding it up, Sarr running in behind. But I think one thing with Sarr, he's a finisher. If we get him in the right positions, he's going to score goals. So. I think Rob would be really impressed by, especially that first half. I think he could have had a penalty against Middlesbrough, beat his man for pace, got pulled down right on the edge. Let's get him in positions. I think he's a really good player. Come on, we've seen it before. He might have had consistency. He hasn't had managers, but we know his quality. We know what he's done in the Championship before. So let's get him in the positions where we know he can thrive, and he could be amazing for us this season. Could we even? I know his contract's running down, so he might not get more money. But if he has another good season, again, it puts us as a selling club in a better position come January or next summer.
Yeah, that's a great point, because there was rumours. I was reading a couple of places that Watford was set to offer him a new deal, Sam. Now, that kind of threw me off a little bit, because I was thinking, well, he's been linked with, I mean, how many times has he been linked with the move away from Watford since he joined in 2019? Yeah, in the summer. Could you see that, Sam? Because I mean, Adam said today that he doesn't see. Sorry, he didn't say that. He said that they haven't started talks yet, but it's been hinted at by a couple of people that it could be a possibility.
Yeah, do you know what? It wouldn't shock me, but I would say I'm shocked that Sarr's still here. To be honest with you, I thought he'd be the first one out the door, more likely than both Deeney, João Pedro, even Culshaw at the time. I just thought that he was a player who'd always sort of been. You know, in fairness to Sarr, I don't think he's ever kicked up a fuss, and he's always got his head down and worked really hard. But there's always been sort of background talks of, rumours, Liverpool at one point, or Newcastle, or Aston Villa, or Everton. So I'm really surprised that he's still here. Obviously, I'm delighted though. I think that while there's been some quieter performances so far, I think he started the season really well. I think the reason he signed a new contract wouldn't necessarily for him to stay for longer, probably for some sort of buyout clause, that sort of thing. But yeah, I think he's a player who probably deserves that new contract, deserves that pay rise if there is one in there, that incentive, or some extra bonuses. So interesting to see how that one sort of pays out. But I think the club will just want to have the window shut for a couple of days, refocus on the team, and go from there.
Sam, just to add to that, Ian says, could the 16 million from Kamara pay for the new Sarr contract? Now, I'm sure you guys have seen it, but there was a deal where Hassan Kamara went to Udinese and Watford received around £16 million, and he was loaned back to us for the rest of the season, which actually doesn't change anything in terms of this season, but Watford's accounts are 16 million richer. So, Sam, when you look at that deal, do you think that could be the case? I know we're very much speculating at the minute here, but do you reckon that's a bigger picture, or could this be certainly a sign that he might be offered that new deal?
It's a really difficult one, because I've always held my hands up. I don't really understand accounts with football. I don't really understand finances, to be honest. We get those spreadsheets once a year, and I just don't understand a clue what's going on in there. But I think, look, I really like this Kamara deal, particularly because if we go up, I reckon we'd buy him back for 2 million, 3 million. So we would still make the profit, to be honest with you.
And we're not breaking any.
No, we're not breaking any rules either. I'm sure the EFL are going to look at changing the rules somehow again to try and stop us doing this in future. But look, what it suggests to me, though, the fact that we're having to do this is that there are some sort of money problems in there that might not necessarily be used to spend on players. There might still be a debt in there. Obviously, parachute payments we have coming in as well. It'll be, as I say, it'll be interesting to see if the Sarr new contract does come through. But for me, it just seems that we needed that money, and that's why we sold Kamara for 16 million.
Charlie, what do you think on that whole deal? Because there was a lot of noise, wasn't it, about that whole thing? And it was completely out of the blue as well. I think Andrew just tweeted it, and it just, Watford Twitter just blew up.
Yeah, it was Watford heritage of this year, 2012, and we're still piss boiling. So, came out of the total blue, and I'm hoping that later tonight we'll have, because we've sold them our player of the season, maybe they'll give us Festi Everselli in return. But really strange deal. What Sam was saying about the contract for Sarr, I think what he mentioned about a release clause could be sensible. I don't think he's on the most amount of money. He's coming as a young player during his first contract. Boost him up to give him a bit of a pay rise, maybe slap a like £14 million release clause. Yeah, I have no idea about the money. It's a real strange one. I think Andrew French will sit down with Scott after the window once the dust has settled, and I think he'll explain what's going on. But at the moment, it's just, I don't know, uncertainty. It's not clear, because I think we were quite led to believe at the start of the window that we had a bit of cash and we were maybe prepared to put down some money. But I do think we were also expecting Sarr, Dennis to go to get 40 million from them at the start of the window. That hasn't happened, so we've been kind of reactive. Not too sure, but like I said, we've got Kamara now for the rest of the season. A bit more cash, so looks good to me.
Sam, that's a great point I wanted to get onto about how you're looking at this transfer window, because I think Charlie hit the nail on the head there, that we probably have been more reactive than proactive, if you've got the scale at both ends. But at the same time, on the one hand, I would personally would like us to be a bit more proactive in the market. I think there's been some deals done by other clubs that you think, could we have got in there, especially with, the attractive nature of, number one, the coach we've got at the minute, but also the team that we're looking to build, and also the fact that we have just been relegated from the Premier League. So Watford is an attractive club for anyone who wants to play in the Championship. But at the same time, can you understand maybe the way we've approached this window with the likes of Dennis going, and, we'll get into the full list in a minute and how we're rating it. But I think outgoings, how many players are we looking at? I think it was, according to Transfer Market, it's around £50 million, over £50 million we got for outgoings. So, and then the incomings, I think it's 5 million, but the total value is, it says here, 30 million. So we have made a profit on this window, but can you understand the way we've approached it?
Yeah, I think it was always going to be a difficult one, because you don't want to sort of at the start of the window say we went and spent loads of money, assuming that Sarr would leave or Pedro would go, and then they don't leave in the end, then we're in a whole load of trouble. So it's always going to be a case of seeing what happens with those two players. I was surprised at the time, and it feels like so long ago now that Culshaw left, but I was surprised that Culshaw went. I thought it would be Culshaw and João Pedro, the two to stay, and it would be Sarr and Dennis to go. It turns out it was just Dennis and Culshaw. So it doesn't shock me. There are times where I've just been, particularly at the start of the season, there are holes in the squad that are so obvious. That right wing back position is so clear that we need to address it. There's money there, as you say. We've only spent 5 million on Bayat. Obviously, there's other money in there, such as agent fees and wages. But even if we got someone on loan, like Ethan Laird, I don't understand why.
That was the weird one, wasn't it? Because from what obviously we're only kind of taking in what's being reported, but it seemed like the Mario Gaspar deal pretty much blocked that from happening. Yeah,
exactly, and it's just so clear as well that after 3 games, Mario Gaspar, he's not the one that fits into Edwards' system. So I think it's really disappointing that we haven't got a right back in. I doubt anything's going to change in the next few hours either. We're going to see a lot of this season, Gaspar on the right-hand side, Kamara moving over, and it's going to be a difficult watch at times, I think. And it's an area that we're still going to be sat here, I reckon, saying in January, that's the area that has to be addressed. I think going forward as well, the options of Deeney, and I know Bayat scored the other day, probably not going to be good enough. But that being said as well, I'm quite happy with some of the signings that have come in terms of Davis, Halls, Chowdhury. I think Ben Hamer, not spoken about, but he's probably a sensible move as well. So I'm very sort of 50-50 on this window in terms of yes, it's been good because of who's coming in and who we've kept, but at the same time, there are still holes, and I don't think Edwards has been backed as well as he could have been.
Just sticking on that right wing back chat. So Sean in the comment section says, if we don't sign a right wing back tonight, I'd rather see Ngakia in the team over Mario Gaspar. Not impressed at all so far. Alex says, could do with signing a right back capable of taking a corner. Nick G, another right wing back comment. Any news on a right wing back? We need one. If we're going to continue 3 at the back, we need a right wing back. If we go to flat back 4, we need a backup left back. Signing neither will be a problem. Charlie, I'll chuck it over to you on this one. Are you in the same camp as Sam that we are missing that type of wing back, if that makes sense? We have got a right back in Gaspar, but I think Edwards described him perfectly, that he's more of not the exact phrase, but more of a steady Eddie rather than a sort of Ferrari down the right-hand side.
He mentioned he's not a flyer, is he?
And That's the one.
Yeah, it's obvious and it's plain to see. There's no getting away from it. That is an area that we are missing. Frustrating seeing Ethan Laird get an assist in front of the Rookery on Saturday. Went on to score against Hull midweek. He looked like the perfect fit. So I'm not sure what's happened there, but that seemed a bit of an open goal. The comment earlier about Jeremy Ngakia, I don't know. I was going to have a look before, but I didn't have time. Like, did he go on tour? Do we know categorically that Ngakia is not in Rob's plans and he's not fancied? Because we know he's injured. The club have confirmed he's carrying a bit of a knock. So has he had this injury the whole time, or have you guys got more of a clue as to does Rob not fancy him?
Yeah, so I've been told that the club aren't too happy with the way that Jeremy Ngakia progressed from when they first brought him in. I don't really know the ins and outs. I don't think it's an attitude problem. I just don't think he's the player that they thought they were getting when they first got him in, and he's not turned out as well as they thought he would. It's
interesting because I saw a report this window that I think Hull were interested in taking him on loan. Football Insider, who actually, to be fair, get more things right with Watford than wrong. So I think there probably was something in that. I just don't know, Charlie. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because I think Ngakia's. I think I understand what you're saying, Sam, in the sense that I think we would have expected him to have progressed more. I guess in his defence, he'd argue that it hasn't been this most stable of years that he's been at the club. He seemed like the perfect Ivic sort of wing back, didn't he? Because he was we know when we're watching Ngakia defensively for the Championship, I think he's a good player to have. I think it's probably going forward, isn't it? It's just whether do you think Rob could mould him into something that he probably isn't at the minute, which is more of a progressive fullback. I mean, time will tell, right? But I'm personally not that confident that he could. I don't think technically probably could personally.
I think he'd be better in that position than Gaspar, personally.
For sure. Yeah, I agree.
He's got a bit of a role, hasn't he, when he kind of dummies to cross the ball and he rolls the ball to get rid of the defender. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. But, yeah, that right wing back, I think Kamara played on Tuesday, and I think we looked a lot stable with 3 at the back compared to the 4 against QPR. I think our defence was not great at all against QPR. We needed that protection. We looked a lot more stable with the 3, and I think it's clear that's Rob's favourite system. We need to be going with that. But seeing Kamara on there, he moved over to the left, didn't he, towards the end of the game, and he instantly beat about 3 or 4 players. So I don't know how long we got. 3 hours left. Come on, Gino.
Scott's currently in London Colney watching Jacob, Charlie, and Sam just talking right back sessions. Sam, that's a great point on that. Do you think we'll get back onto the squad? But do you genuinely think we could see someone coming in last minute? Could you see Adam Leventhal on the Athletic Live gave a little shout out to Watford, and he said they have been looking for a right back or a right wing back before deadline day today. Now, kind of refreshing Twitter just at the minute, I haven't seen anything to suggest there is going to be someone just from the links, but it's almost an element of frustration, isn't it? We could have maybe started it early. It's been 84 days this window. We have had time to get one in.
Yeah, and even then, it's been since then 30 days or so since we started the season a month ago today, and it's been clear for a month that we've needed a right back. So it is really frustrating. I feel sorry for Rob Edwards in that respect as well, because I just feel like with with Kamara a right wing back, and again, nothing against him, but it slows everything down when he's a right wing back, when he's having to cut back onto his left or slow the game down so he can make sure to get the right angle on his right foot, and it's just really frustrating to watch at times. And I feel for Kamara as well in that respect, but I don't think we'll see anyone come in now. I think if it would be anyone, it would probably be Festi Ebaseli from Udinese, more than anyone else. Exactly,
it's a really obvious move in history. Make it happen.
Yeah, it's so obvious. I'm not too sure. What are the rules with loans in the Championship nowadays? Are you allowed to loan during the season?
Not 100% sure, but I don't think so, Charlie. I know we still go for free agents, obviously.
But Watford are quite good with rules anyway, so I'm sure we can find a way. But I don't think you can after this window shuts. I think there's a free agent market, isn't there? Which we've seen previously last season. Who did we bring in?
Welcome to Watford, Ashraf Lazar 2.0.
And Kulu last year we brought in after the window shut. So
Carlos Sanchez, did we? Was Carlos Sanchez after the window?
Yeah, maybe he wasn't bad in the Championship.
That was a great signing, actually.
Yeah, I think that comment, Nick, is bang on. Festi Ebaseli, he's a beast. Like, he was so good for Derby. He's young. He's done it. I think he's played 35 times in the Championship. He's played right back or right wing back, quick, powerful. I think he'd be a great signing. So I just want to see a little graphic pop up from the Watford Twitter account at some point this evening.
Please. Oh my God, he would be such a good fit as well. I mean, particularly obviously Room did an incredible job at Derby, but the impact he had on that team was just like, I agree with you guys. I think he'd be a great fit. Just on, hopefully that does happen at the end of the window. On stuff that has happened today with Watford, we mentioned Pussetto to Sampdoria. One bit of news that came out on deadline day, which I'd imagine had been agreed a little bit earlier, but it's been kind of fully announced today. Danny Rose had his contract mutually terminated with a year left, so it expired in the summer of 2023. Sam, I'll throw this over to you because I remember literally about a year ago today, we were doing a video on Danny Rose saying we thought it was a good signing if he got back to his, close to his best and got back fit. That didn't really happen. Even when he was playing and he was trying to get his fitness back, you could just tell he was playing at 40 to 50% of his potential and his actual ability. How disappointed are you to see it kind of fizzle out the way it has? Because I think as I said, we had promised that this one could work. Yeah,
really disappointing. I mean, I'm not gonna be one of those fans who says I never wanted him in the first place. At the time, I thought it was a really good move. Actually, I thought it was sensible. I thought we were taking. At times in football, you have to take risks on certain players. And I think he was one of them that if we could get him back fit, back happy, I think he would have been brilliant. And we saw some glimpses of it. It was that Norwich away game where we won 3-1, and he was the best player on the pitch. He just looked so confident and he looked brilliant. But there were those games against Liverpool under Claudio Ranieri where he got absolutely torn apart.
That was the one, wasn't it? That was the one where you just thought, it's not going to work.
Manchester City at home as well, Bernardo.
Got destroyed, and I think that just absolutely wrecked his confidence. I feel sorry for Danny Rose because it's well documented. He has his own personal life issues as well, and I really hope it works out for him wherever he goes next. There's a couple of talks, perhaps him going back to Sunderland to finish his career. A couple of other clubs around Europe are perhaps sniffing around, but look, it's a shame it didn't work out. I thought it was a good move at the time. Ultimately, it didn't pan out the way that we would have hoped.
Rio actually says, as you say, Sam, Sunderland linked and with Danny Rose, we could see him back at the Vic in 16 days' time. Is it fair to say, Charlie, as Sam said, a punt on Rose that didn't work out? Were you someone who understood the move at the time for Rose?
Absolutely. To be fair, Sam's kind of just jogged my memory. There was a couple of glimpses, wasn't there? Norwich, I'm sure against Leeds, he played quite well as well. Although we were terrible, I remember him being quite good there. So, and I think he's a good character. I think, obviously we haven't seen him and he's been trading away and that doesn't look good, but we've seen him in interviews. He's been going to Tottenham's youth games and kind of working with younger players. So I think he is a good character. For one reason or another, it hasn't worked. But again, he's coming into Watford last season. He played under 3 managers. I don't think we're we're built for player development, especially last season. And I actually look back to last season and look at the recruitment and look at Rose, Sissoko, who was the centre midfielder? Tufan. Who was the Slovenian? Kucka, yeah. But like, obviously this is a hindsight, but I'm looking now and I'm thinking Hamza Chowdhury, 24, better profile, who should be a Premier League player. Keenan Davis, he's young. He could have a good career. Courtney House, when he came on the other day, looked really, really impressive. So I'm looking at our transfer window, and it's not. And again, we could be speaking this time last year and I get this completely wrong, but I think this window, especially those kind of profile of players, that's what we kind of should have been doing maybe last season. Younger players got a point to prove, and who've got more of a career instead of kind of the older players who might just want to be sticking around in the Premier League for a decent wage.
Agreed. I absolutely agree with you. I think that's a really good way. I didn't even think about kind of the comparison between this window and the last one, because as you say, Charlie, the profile of player we're going for, Sam, is a lot younger. I think you can tell Rob's had an influence over not every transfer. I think we can categorically say it has. I mean, he's had an influence, but obviously there's some players he's handpicked. I think Chowdhury's one he certainly did. I think Courtney Hawes is one that 100% he picked out. I also think Keenan Davis is another one as well. I think the other few transfers in the likes of Raymond and Vakun Bayer was probably a profiler player rather than him going to watch those guys. But Sam, now Charlie said that, and you kind of flip it and you look at the two windows. Did you look at this one differently now? Because I think that's kind of triggered my memory that actually there's been more. I think sensible is probably the right word. There's players that are actually fitting the way that we want to play. Now, in an ideal world, we would have got a right back in and maybe another central midfielder, but I think it's an improvement anyway on what we've seen before in the windows.
Yeah, definitely. I think certainly the view with a lot of these players, yes, while Chowdhury and Keenan Davis are loan moves, there's sort of a look towards the long term with them, I think. Perhaps if we go up, I imagine that they'd come back to us on a permanent, perhaps if they're able to have big roles this season. I think obviously when you're in the Championship, you're going to sort of have a different strategy anyway. But bringing Rob Edwards in has represented a sort of a new dawn for the club, as I've said before as well. And it's good to see that, I don't think we've backed him as well as we could have done, but I think on a basic level, the recruitment strategy has changed. Although again, there are still some, key things in there which haven't changed, like obviously Emoki Bayat clients come in this summer, and as you say, without doubt, I doubt that Rob Edwards came in and said I want Vakun Bayo and Raymond. So not perfect yet, but I think we're certainly on the right lines.
Yeah, interesting.
I think one player that's been mentioned, and I think that's been clear as like one of our number one targets from the start of the window is Cameron Archer. And I think we've been waiting for Villa to bring in another attacker. I don't think they're bringing in another attacker. Mm-hmm. When Villa were down the road with Ismaila Sarr, that was reportedly part of the deal, wasn't it? As long as we can get Archer on a loan. And I think Archer's not been playing much minutes, and I think he's someone that Rob identified and said, I want to get him. So I'm a bit gutted that hasn't happened, but I think that's just circumstantial. And I mean, I'm surprised when we talk about last season, you wouldn't be surprised if like Gasper came in last season, that kind of signing. But I think, like we said, Hawes, Chowdhury, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what Keenan Davis can do.
Yeah, I think they're three really good signings. That's the thing, isn't it, Sam? Because on the one hand, you kind of think, and as Charlie says, there's certain players that have, really fitting the profile of what we need. And Archer, I think from what we, I haven't seen loads of him, but he kind of fit what we needed. I can't get my words out. Fit what we needed. I don't know. Is it fair to say that I put a tweet out the other day about being patient with this kind of rebuild. Now, some people are saying it hasn't really been a rebuild yet because ultimately we're at the start of it and we haven't backed Rob fully, is what some people are saying. And I do agree that there's areas that we could improve. Is it a case of maybe what I'm kind of thinking, are we able to fix everything in one window? Or do you think that actually we could have gone all out and got everything sorted in this window? Or do you think it's a case of 3 windows times, then after this one, January, and the next summer, we then go, okay, that's that we have backed Rob, or do you think it was possible in this window?
Definitely, I think we have to give time to everything here. My only concern is that we know what the Pozzos are like. That if results don't go well, they like to change the manager. I sort of fear for Rob Edwards that, say we lose 3 or 4 games on the trot, he'll lose his job, and then fans will turn around and say, well, you didn't give him the right back or the centre mid or the striker that he wanted, so it's not really his fault. So in that respect, I am sort of slightly worried that we haven't backed Rob in the best way possible. But look, I think in reality, a rebuild is going to take a few years. It doesn't happen overnight. Whether we go up or not, I think it's going to take 2-3 years to reset the culture of the football club, reset the profile of the signings, and back the manager as well, as best as we can. So I think the foundations have been laid this transfer window with some of the signings and who we've kept hold of. So I do think we just need to give it time.
Okay, right. So moving on to the next part of the show. So I've got the ins and outs in front of me, and then we're going to get the guys' ratings and thoughts of Watford's overall transfer window as we approach the deadline. So I'm going to run through the ins. This is according to Transfer Mark, so don't quote me on these fees. Actually, you know what? Starting with the departures, and at the top is 17.1 million. Hassan Kamara is one of the departures. But kind of that aside, because that's obviously a deal that's kind of more in house with between both clubs. So obviously, Emmanuel Dennis to Forest, Culshaw Hernandez to Columbus Crew, Samir to Tigres, Adam Asin to Udinese, and speedy recovery to Adam as well. He suffered a pretty nasty knee injury yesterday for Udinese. Sissoko to Nantes, Zinchenko to Olympiacos, Kika Femenir to Villarreal, Quadro Bar on loan to F Fortuna Dusseldorf, Joshua King on a free to Fenerbahce, Nkulu's gone to Aris in Greece as a free agent. Andre Gray also has gone to Aris in Greece. Rob Elliott was left on a free transfer. Pontus Dahlberg was an undisclosed fee, so on 11 so far. Domingos Keenot to Elche on a loan. Ashley Fletcher to Wigan on a loan. And then obviously Danny Rose, Foster, 2 that are without a club at the minute. But I think that's now 14 departures in this window, excluding the Hassan Kamara one, which isn't really a departure. And then we add in the ins. So Vakoum Bio, Mario Gaspar, Raymond I, Ben Hamer, Hassan Kamara, obviously, Courtney Hawes, Hamza Chowdhury, Keenan Davis, Maduka Okoye, and then Yasser Espria, end of loan. So when I read those names out, lads, there's a lot of names there, and sorry about that. What would you give? And it's a tough one because I think time will tell, I think, how we rate this. But right here, right now, what would you rate Watford's transfer business out of 10? I'm going to throw it over to you, Charlie, first. Sorry to throw you under the bus there, mate.
I was waiting for Sam.
Well, I can throw it to Sam if you want a bit more time.
I'll go in. I would say 5 out of 10.
5, okay.
And it's a harsh one, but when you kind of look at the number that we brought in with the Bio, Gaspar, Manai, Hamer, I think we could have. I don't know. I think we could have been more creative with who we've gone for. Whether that's dropping into kind of League One territory, or we should have our pick really of Championship players who we want to get. And I don't know if I've spoken to this previously, but I think some signings are more reactive, opportunist signings rather than something that's been thought out, like your Bio. Although after Tuesday's winner, he's a bargain now. But yeah, I'm not convinced yet on Bio and Manai. But saying that, if we didn't have them and we had no one, would we be playing Shaq Ford up front? Which that might have not been the worst thing. So I think we just could have been a bit more creative. I think we could have been more proactive at getting some players who we know in the Championship. And I think position-wise, it's just that right wing back that is such a glaring hole. And then on the positive side, we've already said it, but that Hawes, Chowdhury and Keenan Davis, for me, they are exactly the profile of player we should have begun. Just think there wasn't enough of it. And I think if we added a couple more of those, maybe a poacher, a right wing back, we'd be in really good position.
Sam, throw it over to you. It's great points, Charlie. He's giving it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll give it a 6 personally. I think keeping Sarr and João Pedro that big, that I think it, if we are to go up, you just know that they're going to be central to it. A bit like how a couple of years ago on reflection, when we went up, I think Sarr carried us in that second half of the season, some huge goals in there. And I think Pedro and Sarr could have a similar impact this season. I really like the signings of Chowdhury, Courtney Hawes, Keenan Davis, and I said Ben Hamer as well. I think is sensible. I just think that the reason why I'm not giving it any higher is because of the clear holes in the squad. Relationship with Mogi Bayat is still there. And also I'd have liked to bring in, I don't know. There hasn't really been that signing that everyone sat back and gone, wow, unbelievable signing that other clubs perhaps have made. And I know it's difficult in the Championship, but it is what it is. But I think keeping Sarr and Pedro are huge.
You know what? That's a really good point. And Charlie, when you kind of frame it like that and you think Pedro stayed, who we didn't expect to stay, Sarr stayed, who I think a lot of fans didn't expect to stay either. Does that change the way maybe you look at it? Obviously, you were rating it on the business we've done, but do those two players almost feel, well, I think with Pedro in particular, it almost does feel like a new signing, the fact that I think we come deadline day, I don't think a lot of us expected him to be here.
Yeah, ignore that 5. It's going up to a 6. I didn't think about the transfer window as a whole. But now Sam's bang on. Like, would we have replaced Pedro and Sarr with players better than, as good as them, better than them? Doubtful. Even if we did get an Archer or something, they're not exactly proven. And yeah, Sam made a really good point. Keeping those two, where at one stage it looked like we were getting rid of them as well as Dennis. And I think the fact that we got rid of Dennis, we signed him for 3 million last year. We sold him for 20 million. So massive profit on that. So yeah, I think you have to hand it to the club because they've definitely had offers, so they could have cashed in, but they're kind of maybe not gambling, but they're digging their feet in and they're saying, look, if we can get more mileage out of these, we know we've got good players in house. Let's keep them happy. Let's make them a really important part of the team, and let's hope they're going to take us back to the Premier League.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what, Sam? You made a really interesting point about like. Were you trying to get at maybe that one signing where you're like, okay, we're in business this season? Was that what you meant by the the window?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, it's really difficult to say who that signing would have been in hindsight. But I look at previous seasons, people we've brought in. Last season, Emmanuel Dennis. A couple of years ago, Ismaila Sarr, Delafeu, Capu. I don't know.
But would you have said Emmanuel Dennis before when he came in at first?
No, that's true. To be fair, that it is a good point. But even Sissoko, I was excited about Sissoko at the time.
So, yeah, I agree. I thought Sissoko was going to work out. I didn't. But 2015, Sam, I think that's the season that I'm just looking at the list now of the players we brought in, and I think there was a few signings. I think Gomez straight off the bat was like a big sort of right. Okay, we mean business this season. I think that one for me anyway. I think getting Igalo in January, but you're right, Charlie.
Vidra came back as well.
Those heights. I think Vidra was the one for me where I thought, right, we're going to be up and around there this season. Now, that's not to say I don't think we will be this season, but I just remember when he got brought in, because I remember, I don't know who Deeney was saying this to, but he said that he'd had the 2012-13 season, 2013-14, got 20 plus goals in both. And he said, look, he had offers to go. And he said, look, I want to stay, but I want to know that we're going to give it a good go this season. And then they said to him, look, we're bringing Vidra back. And I think in his mind, that was like, right, okay, we're giving this a really good shot this season. So, Sam, do you think we're kind of missing that one signing like that in a sense? Do you think there's like a position where you think is there a particular position where you thought if we signed a player of Courtney Hawes or Chowdhury's level in that position, you'd be like, yeah, okay, I'm much more confident. Not to say you're not confident, but a 6 to a sort of 8.
I think the right back again have to bring it back to that. I think we're really lacking on that right hand side, and I think it's a position that could come back to bite us later in the season. To be honest with you, saying that sat here now, but just reflecting on that comment, looking back on it now, at the end of the day, we are in the Championship where the quality is slightly lower. It's a very different league to the Premier League, and having Sarr and João Pedro in there sort of represents those players who will get you off your seat as it is. So, you mentioned it with João Pedro, keeping hold of him almost feels like a new signing in itself. So, while I think it's probably on reflection been a bit of an underwhelming transfer window, would have liked a bit more movement. I think keeping hold of those two is huge.
Sam, we've got a question from Dan Simpson who says, "What is your issue with Mogi Bayat? You know he got us Dennis and Sarr right. Do you want to ask that one?"
Yeah, I think that there's sort of certain moral problems with Mogi Bayat. If we look at some reports seen in France and other countries as well, he's an agent who's been involved in quite a lot of scandals over the years. There seems to be a clear rapport towards Mogi Bayat deals with the Pozzo family. And yes, Dennis and Sarr are good deals, but there's been so many more which simply have not been good enough at all. And we need to be sort of broadening our horizons, looking at a wider pool of players. And I think it's been holding us back having that relationship with Mogi Bayat.
Charlie, Sean says we will be starting Bio Manite if we let Sarr and Pedro go. Yeah. I think that kind of confirms your point, doesn't it? If, you know, obviously it's too early to tell, I think, for Bio and Manite, even though we're 7 games in. But I think
I like to think, though, that the club would have had replacements lined up like they did with Keenan Davis when Emmanuel Dennis left. Keenan Davis was through the door before Dennis was confirmed, and I think that succession planning would have been done, especially for Sarr. So yeah, I can't imagine the club would have let us go into the season or after transfer window with just Bio Manite. Do you guys agree?
It's really difficult.
Go on, Sam. You go.
No, I just think it's really difficult to say. I think particularly in Raymond they were looking at a signing. Yes, he was in Barcelona academy, someone who's got a point to prove, and it was a very sort of Watfordy signing in that respect. I think they would have been happy with him towards the start of the season. I think the same goes for Vacu and Bayo, who actually it's quite interesting with Bayo because not just because of his goal the other day, and I know I talk about how disappointed I am with the Mogi Bayat sort of situation, but I think he's actually not a bad option off the bench. I think in the QPR game as well, I thought it was good. Offered an option up front. It's someone just at least to stand there in the box and try and win headers. So time will tell with that one. But yeah, I'm not sure if he would have brought anyone in, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of feel a bit confused with this window because I feel like on the one hand we've bought players for Rob's system, and then on the other hand I'm kind of thinking, well, Rob's kind of flipping between formations at the start of the season, so I'm kind of unsure whether we've bought for his 3-5-2, as you mentioned at the top of the show, Charlie, about this is the system he prefers, or whether he's gone, these are the players that we need in the squad, and then I work from it. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm kind of a bit confused about how we've approached this window. Is it a case of that 3-5-2, or is it a case of actually, Rob, these are the players you can have, and he's obviously picked a few that he wants and the profile of player. I don't know, Charlie. I'm just kind of a bit torn on them.
I think going into the window, it was we're going to get rid of Dennis and Sarr. We're going to get 45 million. With that money, we're going to reinvest and we're going to do it for Rob's favoured 3-5-2 system. That obviously happens with Dennis. Didn't happen with Sarr. So we're thinking, how are we going to get Sarr in the team while we've got him? I think they are trying to go for that system. And I think Rob's tried to be flexible at times. I think against QPR, he played 4-2-3-1, which if you're looking at the players he's got, I think that's actually was a sensible system, but it just didn't work at all. And I think he kind of realised that and went back to the back three. I mean, for me, I think when Sam was talking about that one signing who would really kind of got you excited, I think if we did get rid of maybe Sarr and Dennis, and I know it maybe is too obvious, but imagine if we got Kane Wilson in on a free transfer at the right wing back, and then Cameron Archer up front as the two with João Pedro or Keenan Davis down that two. And that would have been kind of how I would have seen it. So I think it's not been what everyone's had planned and it's had to be reactive. But in the same sense, it's like, I'm so glad that we haven't gone what we've done previously, gone, no, Sarr, train with the kids, or Pedro, train with the kids because there's transfer speculation. So we've got these great players. Let's try and utilise them. Although it's been a really difficult start, let's get this window shut. We know what we've got to deal with and then go from there. And if we haven't got that right back, which is looking unlikely, then we're just going to have to deal with that and then see how we get on until January.
Yeah, I thought, as you say, Charlie, I thought Kamara looked just like a different player on the left-hand side. Like, I agree with you guys. I just don't think it's a viable option continuing with him in the right. And that's not because he played poorly, but I think it's going to come to a point where teams are just going to target that side because obviously it's on his weaker side, right? So we'll see. let us know what you think in the comment section about kind of the rating of the windows. We'd love to hear what you think. We'll put a tweet out as well, kind of getting your guys' thoughts. So both Sam and Charlie have gone for a 6. I probably would agree with that as well. I think it's about a 6 out of 10, and that's not to be boring, but I think there was definitely areas to improve on. But also we have had some good moves in there. I think from the 10-minute, 15-minute cameo we saw from Courtney Hawes. Jesus, like he could dominate strikers in the Championship in particular. And as you say, Keenan Davis, can't wait to see him put on a Watford shirt because it has been a while actually. And I think Rob admitted to Andrew, didn't he, Sam, about kind of throwing him in a bit too quickly at Birmingham, if I'm correct. He kind of mentioned that he wasn't fully fit, but Rob was just like so excited to get him in, which at the time I thought, does that send a message about what he thinks about his other options? But then I just kind of thought, well, no, not really. I think it's just a case of him knowing Keenan and wanting to work with him and wanting to get him in the team and knows the qualities he can offer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's sort of been unfortunate as well that I think he's actually been ill for the last couple of weeks. So we can't really plan for that. But the sooner he's back, the better. I think we've as good as, for example, Sarr was the other day and João Pedro were. I think we've really sort of lacking that target man, which I thought Bayat did really well the other day as well.
Yeah, lovely. I tell you what, before we go, can we just talk through that finish? I mean, to be fair, I have to hold my hands up. I thought Gaspar shanked the shot, and he did get a massive deflection. Because at the time, I was like, "Don't shoot, Mario. Do not shoot. You're on your left. You're going away from goal. It's only going to that corner flag or like the top of the rookery." I mean, obviously, right place, right time. But I tell you what, positioning-wise, Charlie, great positioning, and the finish is a tough finish. If you actually watch it back, he doesn't really look up either. He kind of just knows where the goal is, and then bang, bottom left.
And the first touch, he hasn't got a lot to think about. He's touched it, got in his path, swivel, bang, and I think I tweeted back in a bargain at the moment. But I think we need to give these players time. Same with Raymond. There's stuff that I haven't seen that I haven't been that impressed. But look, we haven't given them a proper chance yet. Let's see what they do through long the season. And I've been impressed with Bio, especially against the ball. Like he's tracing down, he's quick, he's mobile. So let's give these guys a chance. But absolute scenes on a Monday as that goes in last minute. It was
unreal.
I was shocked because I didn't think we played particularly well, but to get that win against Middlesbrough, who are a big team, and it was a massive win. I think we can look back on these kind of games when there's been so much uncertainty. I think we've done really well to beat Sheffield United, Burnley, and Middlesbrough.
Yeah, I think if you said to Rob before the start of the season, how many points we got? We got 12 in the end of 7 games and only lost 1 game. I think he'd definitely have taken that. Sam, final thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a very Watfordy transfer window. It's been all over the place with speculation. As I said, it's a bit underwhelming in terms of incomings, but I do think we've still got, at this level in the Championship, a good squad. Can't wait to see how João Pedro progresses, and looking forward to Rotherham on Saturday. Should be a long trip up, but should be a good one coming off the back of Tuesday. Yeah, I am. Yeah,
like, that is just unbelievable. So you're gonna have to start doing some match day experiences or something, just for the people who can't.
Yeah, we probably should. I've also got. I've decided to go to Blackburn as well in a couple of weeks, and that's a long one on a Tuesday night.
See you there.
Yeah, see you there, Charlie. It's closer for you though, isn't it?
Yeah. If you wanted to see match day experiences from the QPR game, you'd have seen me and Sam going wild after Kiembe's goal.
Just to look up and see. I haven't
left the ground in so long that frustrated. I was in the Elton John stand. I took my cousin who's not a Watford fan, and he was like, I don't even support Watford, but the way you haven't got something from that game, even though I don't think we played particularly well, but the way in which Kiembe's goal was disallowed, and the manner of the goals as well, were just like. Don't even get me started on the third one. They're just queuing up at the back post. Ryan, any breaking news, mate? João Pedro staying at Watford. That's the big breaking news. And I think that's where we're going to wrap up today's video. Thanks so much to Charlie for coming on. What a man. Mr. Twitter, Watford Twitter Spaces. And if you haven't checked out the club's official Twitter Spaces, where Charlie hosts it, brings on a player or a former player with a Watford contributor, fan, journalist, then make sure you do go and give that a listen. When's the next one, Charlie?
Possibly tomorrow. So keep eyes peeled. So hopefully we'll have some news on that soon. And yeah, hopefully we've got something tomorrow. But look, we look to aim to do them throughout the season, so they've been really good. So keep getting involved, and thanks for everyone to listen in.
They've been top work. My personal favourite was Charlie singing the Hamza Chowdhury chant to Hamza Chowdhury. I think that was absolutely excellent. Sam, pleasure as always, mate. And we'll catch you for another video very, very soon. Apologies for not the post-match reaction content. We haven't done it recently. We should be back. So Sunday, Sam, we'll do a Rotherham reaction.
Yeah, should be good. I'll throw
both of you under the bus here. Apologies.
it will get much easier when we're both moving back into uni soon. So when we sort of have a schedule with that, it'll become much easier. So yeah, looking forward to the season ahead. I also feel like now the window's shut, we can just fully focus on the football and get behind Rob and the boys, and hopefully we'll be sat here deadline day in January, top of the league and getting ready for the Premier League.
That's the spirit. Love it. Great way to end the show. Thank you very much, guys. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you very soon. Up the Hornets.